The media landscape exploded with some of the sharpest attacks on Donald Trump, from Stephen Colbert's late-night jabs to Lawrence O'Donnell's emotional on-air takedowns. Tonight's episode is a firestorm, and Trump's name is at the center of it all. Comedians, journalists, even former conservative anchors, all united in one thing: their very public, very pointed criticism of Trump's character, his policies, and his handling of the explosive Epstein files. This isn't just commentary, it's a cultural reckoning. As files tied to Jeffrey Epstein remain under wraps and the world demands accountability, these voices are refusing to stay quiet. Their words sting because they're grounded in outrage, in real consequences, and in watching power dodge transparency. And by the time we're just 1 minute in, you'll want to rally with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. And let's get this conversation burning. Stephen Colbert goes for the jugular. Stephen Colbert has never held back when it comes to Donald Trump, but his recent comments about Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein, they might be his sharpest yet.
You cannot blame Trump and his allies for being scared here, because the more we know about Trump's relationship with Epstein, the more we wish we didn't.
Colbert quipped on The Late Show, a line loaded with disbelief and dark humor that cuts deeper than most editorial digs. Colbert didn't stop there. He went after Trump's economic policies, roasting the 50% tariffs on Indian goods and accusing him of punishing countries like Brazil, all with that trademark smirk.
The tariffs, which, remember, American citizens and companies pay, are different depending on the country we're importing the product from. Countries that negotiated with Trump, like the EU, face levies of like 10 to 15%. But if the president's mad at you, they can be much higher. For instance, Trump doubled tariffs on India to 50%, which will raise the price of items like gauze, bandages, and wadding. Yeah. Another country Trump is punishing with 50% tariffs is Brazil, which is bad news for meat-based Americans. Because in the first 6 months of this year, Brazil sent the U.S. over 180,000 tons of beef.
The timing and seriousness of the global backlash added fuel to the critique. He made it sound less like a policy change and more like a temper tantrum dressed up in trade war rhetoric. Then came the viral gem. Colbert skewered J.D. Vance and Trump over the wildly unrealistic river water level scheme, calling it, in full smirk delivery, an insane, spoiled baby emperor move. That line didn't just land. It echoed across social platforms, undercutting any attempt to frame the policy as anything but a bizarre headline fodder. This segment isn't just satire, it's collective disbelief poured through a late-night prism. And if you thought that was brutal, just wait. You're about to see what MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell had to say, and he didn't hold back. Lawrence O'Donnell's emotional takedown. MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell isn't a comedian, but his critiques can cut just as deep. Recently, he eviscerated Trump over his incoherent responses about who halted U.S. military aid to Ukraine. Trump's answer.
So yesterday, you said that you were not sure who ordered the munitions halted to Ukraine. Have you since been able to figure that out?
Well, I haven't thought about it because we're looking at Ukraine right now and munitions, but I have not gone into it.
O'Donnell's reply?
It takes Trumpian stupidity to say something like that. And when you're as stupid as Donald Trump, you have no idea how stupid your stupidity sounds. Donald Trump is trapped in his stupidity. There is no way he can fake sounding smart about anything.
But O'Donnell's most emotional moment came when he addressed the human toll of Trump's policies. Fighting back visible anger, he condemned the pause in USAID programs, a decision that reportedly led to the death of a 5-year-old orphan in South Sudan.
A 5-year-old orphan possibly obtained medicine on his own. Evan weakened and soon died of an opportunistic infection. Marco Rubio told the House committee, no children are dying on my watch. Evan died on his watch.
He called Trump and Elon Musk soulless, mindless entities. This wasn't cable news, it felt like a moral reckoning. It wasn't enough to label a policy irresponsible. He drew the human silhouette behind the headlines. The president's arbitrary decisions morphed into real-life tragedy in O'Donnell's telling, making it impossible to ignore the human stakes behind global politics. If you think stories like this need to be heard, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. George Stephanopoulos compares Trump to Venezuela. On This Week, George Stephanopoulos didn't mince words. In the wake of Trump firing the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner after a disappointing jobs report, Stephanopoulos accused the action of echoing authoritarian playbooks from Venezuela to Turkey.
Suppressing statisticians is a time-honored tool for leaders trying to solidify their power and stifle dissent. It's happened throughout history, most recently in Venezuela and Turkey, where presidents punished officials and economists who did not toe the party line. It has not been part of the American tradition, but late Friday, it happened here. President Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after baselessly claiming she rigged July's employment report.
He warned, pointing to implications that go beyond economic numbers. This wasn't simply a critique, it was a red flag. Taking down a civil servant after an unfavorable report doesn't just sway perception, it damages the trustworthiness of an entire institution. And Stephanopoulos made that clear. It has not been part of the American tradition. He reinforced the alarm by noting that ABC had invited the White House to respond on the show, but the offer was declined, underscoring an opacity that raised alarm bells.
The president fired the head of the BLS on Friday. We invited the White House to provide a guest to respond. They declined.
It wasn't theater, it was a warning. Move fast, and trust may not find its way back. Bill Maher calls out hypocrisy. Bill Maher turned his signature skepticism toward Dr. Phil, asking why someone who champions keeping families intact would participate in ICE raids during Trump's administration. He didn't just point out hypocrisy. He called it out in a culture where selective morality isn't only frowned upon, it's a fragile excuse. Through sharp questioning, Maher reminded viewers that compassion can't be a partisan swing vote. If caring about families isn't universal, isn't it just a layup for political convenience? His barbed inquiries didn't land softly, they hung in the air. And in a conversation about humanity, that line doesn't waver. It provokes. Joe Rogan accuses Trump of gaslighting. Even Joe Rogan, once a supporter, now a sounding alarm is publicly turned on Trump. On July 30th, Rogan accused the administration of gaslighting supporters, blasting the lack of transparency around the Jeffrey Epstein files and calling out the manipulation of truth as a betrayal of public trust. And this isn't just talk. Reports now hint that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former defense attorney, may appear on the Joe Rogan Experience to address the Epstein saga directly, potentially offering more insight or spin about suppressed information. That's a seismic shift. A mainstream podcast once arm's length from politics is becoming a near front line in the truth war. Rogan's charges aren't abstract. They turn the spotlight on power, secrecy, and who controls the storyline going into November. When a megaphone like Rogan's declares there's a line in the sand on transparency, you don't just pause, you pay attention. Gretchen Carlson's warning. Former Fox anchor Gretchen Carlson delivered one of the sharpest wake-up calls so far. Speaking on MSNBC, she warned that if Trump were to consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell,
I think that that is the biggest slap in the face to the survivors of everything else that I listed. Because that is, to your point earlier, normalizing the fact that it doesn't matter what she did. The idea that that would even be on the table for consideration, that is going to cross all party lines. There will be an insurrection if that happens. It won't just be Democrats. It'll be MAGA. It'll be independents. It will be everybody.
Carlson didn't just suggest it wasn't hyperbole, it was a full-blown revolt she predicted, cutting across MAGA, independent and Democratic lines alike. Carlson didn't mince words.
Because we are at a place in the society right now where we know that child sex trafficking is a crime and that you should not be granted clemency or any release for doing that to young women.
Her focus wasn't on party politics. It was on moral clarity. The idea that a survivor-centered justice system might be upended for political cover struck deep. The stakes are higher than any polling graph. Carlson, a once powerhouse voice on conservative media, signaled that this could be Trump's tipping point. If pardoning Maxwell becomes even a whisper of possibility, the backlash won't remain contained. It could ignite seismic fractures in his own base. Neil Cavuto. Criticism from inside Fox. Neil Cavuto, long a steady presence on Fox News, has quietly carved out his role as a Trump skeptic. He has criticized Trump's rhetoric and decisions so regularly that in February 2020, Trump spent nearly 20 minutes at a rally personally attacking him. From hitting out at economic spin to highlighting the gap between policy and reality.
Right now, so you remember last in the ratings, you remember who was last in the ratings? He got fired, right? You remember? Right? Remember? He's gone. And now Neil's taking his place.
Cavuto has functioned as a rare internal check. His departure from Fox in December 2024 only deepened the void. On The View, comedy meets politics and the stakes are headline high. Joy Behar fired off a warning. When they start coming for the comedians, all bets are off. It was a reminder that satire is democracy's canary. Whoopi Goldberg followed up, blunt and unflinching.
We don't like it. We don't like how it's being, we don't like how this is being done. That's why you will hear us kvetching about this. as long as we are able, because no one we're talking to understands what's going on. And therefore, when they say America, they're not talking about us. They are talking about that very narrow band of America that they think they represent, that I think they don't realize they're starting to lose.
It wasn't a joke. It carried roots in frustration with a return to demagoguery. From late-night laughs to dead serious newsrooms, the message is the same. Donald Trump's policies, his words, and his handling of scandals like the Epstein file aren't being debated. They're being shredded. These voices, some comedic, some personal, some institutional, are loud because something primal is at stake. Transparency, trust, humanity. And with November looming, the question turns visceral. How much louder will they get before the world demands the truth? Stay tuned and let's keep listening.